Good evening, Space Fam. My name is Arsh Nadkarni, and I'm the International Expansion Manager for SEDS-USA, and I'm joined alongside by Kelby Palencia-Torres, who is from the University of Puerto Rico at Mayagüez in Puerto Rico. And today, together, we present to you the second episode of SEDS Talks, that is SEDS Talks Presents from Puerto Rico to NASA, A Journey to Space, featuring Dr. Marla Perez-Davis. So Kelby, would you like to tell our viewers who you are and what you do in a nutshell?
Sure. I'm Kelby Palencia-Torres from the University of Puerto Rico at Mayagüez. I'm going to be a fifth-year theoretical physics student, and I am the president of SEDS UPRM, currently working to make space for everyone.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's so exciting to hear. So without further ado, we have a very special person here with us today. So our speaker for today is going to be Dr. Marla Perez-Davis. So Dr. Perez-Davis is a Puerto Rican herself, and she graduated from the University of Puerto Rico at Mayagüez, again with a degree in chemical engineering. And she is the current director of the NASA John H. Glenn Research Center up in Cleveland, Ohio. So Marla, welcoming you to the show. And let's go ahead, and if you could tell our viewers more about yourself.
So first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to all of you today. I'm looking forward to that. Again, we don't have that much time, but hopefully in this short time, I can tell you a little bit more about myself, but more important about the technologies and the things that we're working on. As you said, my name is Marla Perez-Davis. I'm the director of NASA Glenn Research Center. Graduated from University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez. Came to NASA as a researcher and finished my master from University of Toledo, my PhD in chemical engineer too from Case Western Reserve University. From research, I moved to projects, working in space and aeronautics, and then from there, got more into management and supervision, and I'll talk later on about my career. But again, what a great time to be part of NASA. What a great time to have the opportunity to talk to you about what we're working on. And I hope that everybody this morning has the opportunity to see Mars 2020. Go Perseverance, right? We're so excited. We are so excited about that mission. Beautiful morning at Kennedy. Beautiful morning.
Definitely. Some really good stuff happening in space out there. So thank you for your introduction again, Marla, and we welcome you to today's episode of SEDS Talks again. So Kelby, let me open the floor to you then, and let's get into a little bit about Marla's journey from Puerto Rico to space.
Sure. So Marla, I hear that you're the first woman and Puerto Rican to be the director of a NASA center, specifically NASA Glenn Research Center. But to get there, you must have started somewhere, and definitely you started at the University of Puerto Rico at Mayagüez. So my first question is, what was your experience as a student there?
Well, it was very different. You're talking in the 80s, right? I graduated from Mayagüez in 1983. So the technology that you guys have today is very different from the technology that we have those days. But one thing that I can say is, the foundation that you get into your engineering degrees, your technical degrees, really served me very well. I think, as many of you, you're trying to figure out what you want to do next. Same thing for me. That was what I did. I would have to say that my passion and my love for research started at the University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez. I have the opportunity to work with a professor in my junior and senior year, and I think that's how I developed my love for technologies and research.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely many new programs nowadays about doing research, but there's still not a space program at our university. But going a little back, would you have loved to have participated in a space program at the university? And if so, how would that have helped you today on your career?
So absolutely, I think space is one of those things that attract everyone. So I think it will not have been different. I probably would have jumped to that opportunity as well. I think looking back, if it would have been a space program, absolutely, I would have been part of it. I think it would have helped, and I think that's one of the things that I ask you all to kind of guide yourself in terms of there's so many disciplines, there's so many fields. So if you have the opportunity to be part of one of those programs, just learn more about what is out there. What are those areas that you really have an affinity and you have this desire to know more? Obviously, we all want to know more, but we all have some tendency to like one discipline more than another. So that's one thing that you need to find out for yourself. What are those disciplines that really kind of click with you? So, anyways, that was it. But I would have loved to join one of those space programs. Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely agree that I have a lot of passions for different themes in science and engineering. But I think one of the fundamental keys for me was that I want to understand the origin of things. So that's why I focused on physics and astronomy. But going there, one of the other questions I want to ask you is about how is your experience in your career or any struggles you have had as a woman or as a Latina in STEM. I know that there are a lot of programs nowadays about directed to females to encourage them to participate in STEM, like the Brooke Owens Fellowship Program. And I want to know the story about you, and if you have any advice for any woman or girl that want to have a career in STEM.
Yeah, so the first thing I will go back is when I decided to join or be interested in the engineering field. So the first thing is that I selected chemical engineer because I was in love with math and chemistry. Those two topics were my favorite. And the first time I told someone that I wanted to be an engineer, especially a chemical engineering, the response I got is girls don't go into engineering. I was like, what? Girls don't go into engineering. So that was the first thing, right? You have to overcome this, kind of you're very excited about something, and someone tells you you cannot be there, you cannot be that. But I was very fortunate because my mom and my family said, hey, once you decide what you want to be, you can be whatever you want. You just have to put the effort, and you can accomplish. So I think that's how we start everything. I said I want to be an engineer, and to tell you the truth, I didn't know what exactly a chemical engineer was. But you have to prepare yourself. That's the first thing. You cannot let someone tell you cannot be. You just have, you're gonna have obstacles. It doesn't matter what you're gonna do. There's all gonna be things that are gonna work and things that are not gonna work that well. So you gotta have the determination. You have to prepare yourself, but go after what you like. Don't let someone influence in a bad way what you want to be, because for the ones that don't support you, there's going to be 10 other people that are going to support you. So I think that's very important. And I think it happens to everyone. Obviously, as a woman, you're going to, especially the women's out there, the ladies out there, at times it's hard, but you have to pass that. You cannot let that be, something that discourages you. Just keep building on, yourself within that desire to achieve. Just build on that and let that be. I would say it for all of you. I don't think it's just for women, but at times it can get tough. It can get tough.
Definitely. Talking about tough times, sooner or later, many of us, including myself, have to leave Puerto Rico to pursue our dreams or go to our dream jobs, and we have to leave behind our island, family, and friends to do that. So, what was your motivation to keep going while leaving everything behind?
So the first thing, right, is a job. You're graduating, you want to start, you want to go someplace, and then it was NASA. How can you say no? That's the reality. But it was hard. The first thing is, I was, born and raised in Puerto Rico. My first time on the States was when I came to work with NASA. So it's a cultural shock. There's the language. You don't know anyone, so you're starting from pretty much from zero. It is hard, but you always find, individuals out there that are going to help you. There's a number of, Puerto Rican or people from, Hispanic background that were working for NASA or were in the community. And they always reach out and try to make sure that you feel good and kind of teach you a little bit here and there about where to find things, what to do, what not to do. But it is not easy. It's one of those things that you got to work with, and more than anything, you have to kind of set your goals and decide, how much how much you want to invest to achieve those goals. And there's going to be obstacles. There's times that things are not going to go your way. At those times, you have to pause, you have to reassess, and you have to stand up and keep going. And little by little, you feel more comfortable. And I came here for 5 years. 36 years later, I'm still here. So that was another thing. There was this plan that, I'm going to come, I'm going to work for NASA for a little while, get my, graduate degrees, and probably I was going to move on. It didn't happen. 36 years, I'm still here, and I love every minute of it. No regrets whatsoever.
Definitely. That sounds like a really awesome time to be here, to get to the US, get a job at NASA, and then stay there for more than half of your life. But before you became the director of NASA, what were you working on?
So I started, as I said, as a researcher. Before I moved to the director of, let me go from top down, right? I was the deputy director of the center for 2 years. I have the honor to be the deputy for Dr. Janet Cavandi. She is a former astronaut, and I learned quite a bit from her. So that's another thing I will exhort all of you: find mentors, find people that even your boss, people that are in your field or outside your field that can serve you as mentors. They are great for networking, but they also can give you good advice and teach you things that otherwise you probably will have to learn from yourself. So I was the deputy director before I moved to the director of NASA Glenn. Before that, I was the deputy director for research and engineering. That's the organization that really much have all the engineers and researchers and scientists to support both space and aeronautics. Before that, I was the director of aeronautics, Office of Aeronautics here at NASA Glenn. Before that, I was, working in electrochemistry branch. I was the chief of electrochemistry branch, which, is the area that have the batteries and fuel cells. By the way, that was the area that I started as a researcher when I joined NASA. So I skipped a couple of things. I went 1 year to the University of Puerto Rico as part of a NASA program, and I have the honor to teach at the University of Puerto Rico, the Chemical Engineering Department. So, there have been, a couple of other things, but I think those are the highlights of my career.
Wow, that's amazing. And now that you're here at NASA, you started first from the University of Puerto Rico, you moved to the US, you started doing different jobs and as the director of the aeronautics team, and now you're the director of NASA Glenn. But my question would be, when was that your passion for space developed, that you said, this is what I want to do?
So I think, it goes back to the Apollo years, right? I always remember when I was a little kid, it was a black and white TV, but, the first landing on the moon, right? That first step. So that amazing moment about space that always stuck to my mind. And then as I moved through the years and I learned more about, technologies, about space, that was always very attractive to me. And, when NASA came to, the recruitment, career fair at University of Puerto Rico, I was so fortunate to be offered, the opportunity to work for NASA and space, right? So, and once I start, getting to NASA, then you learn more about space and all the things. I mean, you have this, you asked me at the beginning, right? Would you be in a space, program or some kind of activities at the university? I didn't have that opportunity. So both things happened at the same time. When I started, working at NASA, then I just really learned a lot about all the things, and I'm still learning. It never ends. Learning about all the things that we're working on in both in space and aeronautics. But it is just, that's like, my passion really grew, knowing all these fields, those things that we're doing, not just for space exploration, but many of our technologies find a way to improve our lives. So, I mean, not everybody has the opportunity to work in the technologies really for the benefit of all.
Definitely, that's really true.
Perfect. So your journey to your journey from Puerto Rico to NASA is indeed a very delightful one, and thank you for sharing it with us. So before we proceed, we were having a conversation about how you found your place at NASA Glenn and in Cleveland. So we have someone from the audience here, Irma Gurnell from YouTube asks, Cleveland rocks. Yeah, definitely. Dr. Perez-Davis and others hired by NASA in the 80s paved their way for many students from El Colegio. So Marla, would you like to throw some light on that?
Yeah, so Irma, nice to hear from you. I know her. So anyways, yeah, that is true. And I think, several individuals kind of opened the door for us, and now we have an opportunity that really paved the way for the ones to come. And I mean, it's an honor, it's a unique opportunity. And again, I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about my knowledge, my experiences with you all. I think, you are a generation that really are going to achieve much more than we achieve. You are the Artemis generation. You guys are going to be the ones that are going to be, at the moon, sustainable. You guys are the ones that's going to develop the technologies that are going to take us to Mars and be able to be at Mars in deep space. You guys are the ones that are going to be designing and developing a technology that is going to be the transformation of aeronautics. Planes many years from now are going to look very different. You guys are that generation. You guys also that are going to have the, responsibility to bring the next generation along and help them to be inspired and motivated to, pursue degrees in science and technology and math. I think we all know that that's one area that we really are going to be in need. There's going to be shortages of, all of you. So let's make sure that you also do your part, especially now, to motivate those kids that are in grade school. Tell them how cool is science and math. Tell them about it's not just about the iPad or the games, right? It's what is behind that, how to make that better, but also how to inspire to be that probably first kid on Mars. You never know. But you gotta be out there. You gotta be out there. The question is where. The question is where.
Sure thing. So let's go ahead and get a bit into the stuff that you're doing currently with NASA Glenn. So my first question to you would be, according to you, what is different with your director role at NASA Glenn as compared to sort of directors at other NASA centers, and handling such a big post comes with a lot of challenges and excitement, of course. So if you could chime in a little bit on that as well.
Yeah, so the first thing is that we all, NASA centers, we collaborate pretty much in every single mission. Every center has, their own roles and responsibilities, but there's a lot of collaboration that happens for every single activity that we're working on. NASA Glenn is one of the 4 research centers. And the 4 research centers, when we talk about that, is because we support also aeronautics. And in the aeronautics area, we do a lot of the fundamental research, the changes in technologies, which industry adapt, and then that's how they infuse that technology into the planes, mobility, autonomy, all those things. So I think that's kind of a distinguished as well. But the other thing is, NASA Glenn Research Center have core competencies that are power, propulsion, communication, materials and structure, and some biosciences. So I will, love to talk a little bit more about that, give you guys an idea of what are those technologies that we're working for space and aeronautics.
Sure, definitely. So I think let us sort of dive into what NASA GRC does to contribute to NASA missions, and how this benefits NASA as a whole.
Okay. Do you see my screen now?
Yep. So I think
Yep,
you just
okay.
need to go
Excellent.
to slideshow.
Just putting, all right, perfect. All right, the first thing, let's talk a little bit about who we are and what we do. So
So sorry to interrupt you, but I think we can't see your screen now.
You cannot see my screen.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, that's unfortunate, but
I think we should just join it from
Can you see it now? Can you
yes,
see it
so
now?
I think you might want to just proceed this way, not put it onto the slideshow mode because sometimes it gets wonky. But yeah, we can see it now.
Okay. As long as you can see it, that's all good.
Perfect.
All right. So as I was saying, let me tell you a little bit about who do we are and what we do. So for more than 75 years, NASA John Glenn Research Center has developed technologies that increase the performance and safety of air travel and improve systems and capabilities for missions in this space. We have around 3,300 employees. That is a combination of civil servants and contractors. And we are one of the 10 NASA fields conducting research and technology development. We do that for the nation in terms of exploring, discovering, and innovating the shape of the world for tomorrow. We have two main campuses. One is the Lewis Field, which is near the airport here in Cleveland, Ohio. And we have the majority of our staff and facilities at that campus. We have around close to 3,000 employees in that. The other 200 plus are at our second campus, which is called Plumbrook Station, and is near Sandusky, Ohio. Many of you may have heard about Sandusky, Ohio, because it is Cedar Point, one of the recreational park. It's about 45 minutes from the Lewis camp. And the uniqueness of that specific site is that have one of the world's largest and most capable space simulation test facility. And I have a slide that kind of show what I'm talking about. So as I mentioned before, we work for both space in terms of activities in propulsion, but we also work light materials, communication, advanced communication, and we also do our part for aeronautics. So let me talk a little bit more about some of those things. And guys, let me know if you cannot see the charts. I hope I advanced the chart the right way. Can you see the International Space Station? Okay, good.
Right on.
All right, great. So one of the things that NASA Glenn has been working for more than 20 years is International Space Station. And for those of you that follow International Space Station, ISS, it has been 20 years since we started working with people, and they have been continuously in low Earth orbit. One of the things that ISS has provided to us is the opportunity to advance our physical understanding of space travel while serving an important test bed for the technologies and the know-how required for deep space exploration. One of the biggest challenges we face in space is understanding how fluids and fire act in microgravity, and that's where NASA Glenn comes around. We do research into fluid physics, so to understand how fluid responds in microgravity, and also to improve, which that knowledge helps us to help with improving the fuel tanks, water system, and other fluid-based spacecraft systems. That knowledge helps us make designs, improve the designs, and or understand the basic science behind it. The other piece about the International Space Station and our responsibility, we also have the responsibility for the combustion research. And that is really critical for the safety of the astronaut, because one of the things that we have to do is understand materials flammability and how fire propagates in space, because we need to have that understanding to help the astronaut. It's really a safety component for the astronaut. So how we do that, we have what we call the fluids and combustion facility. And in there, we have two elements, the fluid integrated rack and the combustion integrated rack. And since 2001, we have provided more than 26,000 hours of continuous support for microgravity research on board the International Space Station. The other thing that we work on is, one of the things that you probably all know is that preparing for deep space travel, we have to understand the human performance and how the body will react to long duration missions to the moon and beyond. So this astronaut could spend months, perhaps years, in microgravity, with significant amounts of radiation, and we want to make sure they stay as healthy and productive as possible through the whole journey and after they return home. So one of the things that we work is called a human research program. And that program, what it does is have activities to understand and advance technologies and practice to improve astronaut health and safety. Something as simple as, keeping the astronaut active, doing, the ISS, the treadmill. You have to design a treadmill that can operate in microgravity. We are responsible for doing that kind of things. So let's talk a little bit about Artemis. So I talked before in one of the questions about, we're going back to the moon and this time to stay. So it's really 4 years that we're short, 4 years. In 4 years, we will be doing that. So many of you are going to be asking, why are we going back to the moon? We were there already. And that was 50 years ago. So here is why we're going to the moon. We're going back to the moon to understand how to live in another world, in this case, another planet. The moon holds important information about the formation of our planet and the history of our solar system. But more important, it is going to provide us like a platform to understand how our technologies work, so we can learn about those technologies, how to live in there, with the idea that information is going to help us to make decisions and design components, systems that are really going to allow us to go to Mars in deep space exploration. So the other thing I want to mention about the Artemis, I hope that many of you already know who is Artemis. We go to Apollo, right? Well, Apollo has a twin sister, and her name was Artemis. She was the goddess of the moon. And what better time to call our program Artemis than now that we're going to have the first woman stepping on the moon in 2024 and the next man. So the Artemis program here is going to do a lot of the things that the Apollo did for all of us. First of all, it will establish the leadership, American leadership, and a strategic presence. It will inspire the next generation and encourage careers in STEM. We talk a little bit about that. It will expand the U.S. global economic impact. It will grow U.S. industry and international partnerships because we are not going alone. And improve the technologies and capabilities and new business approaches for future missions to Mars. So as you can see, there's big goals, but there's a strong justification why we're going back to the moon this time to stay. So the next thing is how we're going to get there, right? So we are building two of the most advanced vehicles ever, the Orion spacecraft and the Space Launch System rocket, or SLS, which will be the backbone of our deep space exploration going forward. Orion is a multi-purpose spacecraft that will allow humans to travel beyond the relative safety of low Earth orbit for the first time since Apollo, and deeper into space than ever before. The SLS is today's most powerful and advanced launch vehicle. It stands more than 320 feet tall, which is longer than a football field, and it will produce more than 9 million pounds of thrust for at least out. So combined, the SLS and the Orion are the most capable deep exploration vehicle to ever take flight, and they will send astronauts to lunar orbit for Artemis missions before sending Mars-bound astronauts to rendezvous with the future. I'm sorry, my dog decided to talk. Sorry, guys. I too have a little pet that here and there decides to be part of the conversation. Let's keep talking about what we're doing for the phase one. So as I mentioned, 2024 is the big day. That's when we're planning to have the first woman stepping on the moon and the next man. But before that, in 2021, we are going to have 3-week on-crew test flight on the SLS and Orion known as Artemis 1. Then in 2023, we will launch astronauts around the moon and back on Artemis 2. And finally, as I said, in 2024, we will send the astronaut to the moon on the third flight of SLS and Orion. So as you can see, we have Artemis 1, Artemis 2, and Artemis 3. So let's talk about what it means for each one of these spacecraft. So let's talk about Orion spacecraft. So Orion is the American next generation spacecraft that will take astronauts to exciting destinations never explored by humans. 3 main spacecraft components. There's the launch abort system, we can see there, the crew module, and the service module. So what is NASA Glenn doing? So NASA Glenn is advancing human spaceflight through our role as the lead for the Orion spacecraft European service module integration and its propulsion system and throughout our world-class test facility. So I will talk a little bit about the test that we conducted here. But let me finish telling you what we're doing with the ESM. So one of the things that we do is we manage the relationship and the integration of the European Build Service Module, or ESM, which is then delivered by ESA and Airbus. So I mentioned before that, Artemis program, one of the things is the international collaboration. We're working with ESA and Airbus for that. So a little bit about the module. The module structure is unpressurized and approximately 3 meters long, including the main engine and tank for gas and propellant. It weighs nearly 8,000 pounds empty and carries almost 19,000 pounds of propellant. The ESM has a total of 33 different types of engines for spacecraft maneuvering and impulse for translunar injection and return to Earth. The main engine is a Revergent Orbital Maneuvering System Engine, or OMSI, from the Space Shuttle program. And the prop system includes 8 auxiliary thrusters, which provide thrust for orbital maneuvering, and 24 reaction control system thrusters for altitude control. So let's talk about the test. And that happened also at Glenn, that's at the other facility, the Plum Brook Station. So one of the things that we like to say is that we test like we fly. And our Plum Brook Station has been vital to preparing the Orion spacecraft for the Artemis missions. Today, we have conducted 5 major tests for the Orion program, including the most recent mission-critical testing of the spacecraft for Artemis 1. In March, we wrapped up testing of the Artemis 1 spacecraft, which successfully completed the certification and is ready for the next step, which is toward the launch pad. The spacecraft was flown to Ohio aboard NASA Super Guppy aircraft from NASA Kennedy Space Center in Florida. A combined team of test engineers from NASA, Lockheed Martin, and Airbus conducted approximately 4 months of simulated spaceflight testing, which included thermal vacuum testing to verify the spacecraft thermal control system performed correctly in extreme flight conditions. So those out of the, that are listening, that are like thermal system, this is the dream job. Every electronic component gives off some electromagnetic field. So we conducted the electromagnetic interference and compatibility test to ensure each electronic component was appropriately shielded during flight and operated properly. So talk about the biggest facility that can simulate the thermal, the vibration, and the electromagnetic. So following the test at Plum Brook, the spacecraft was shipped back to Kennedy for additional pre-launch preparation ahead of this 2021 test flight around the moon and back. So that's one piece of what we do in terms of propulsion. The other thing that we do is electric propulsion. So NASA Glenn has led the agency since the early days of NASA, dating back in the first Centaur second stage. Today, we lead the electric in-space propulsion research and development efforts for the agency. Electric propulsion systems are capable of using power for various sources, but solar and nuclear are the primary options. The solar electric propulsion uses sunlight collected by solar arrays for power generation, while a nuclear electric propulsion system uses a nuclear heat source coupled to an electric generator. This system that use that kind of power, ionize and accelerate inert gases to produce highly efficient long-duration thrust. And the farther you go into deep exploration, the more efficient these systems are, because you don't have to, carry the propellant. So, talking about reduction of the propellant, you can reduce the amount of propellant needed by up to 90% compared to the chemical in-space propulsion system. So you can, understand why is the benefit of this kind of system. So as a result, both electric propulsion can allow deep space mission to carry increased payloads because, again, it's a trade-off between the payload and, the propellant that you have to carry for the mission, and hopefully, the reduction of cost. So right now, we're working to develop the higher power system in the range of 13 and 50 kilowatt range to advance a number of NASA missions, but also to meet anticipated industry need. Moving forward, electric propulsion development effort between NASA and industry need to be synergetic as we align on our exploration and commercialization goals, and also face similar challenges in availability of resources and maximizing investment. So the other aspect is the gateways, and many of you probably have heard about the gateway. So beginning in 2023, after Orion and SLS have proven the capabilities we need to get back to the moon, NASA will start to build an orbiting outpost. Think of it as a sort of a small space station around the moon called the gateway. The gateway will serve as a staging point for lunar surface activities and mission farther into the solar system, operating with and without crew. NASA is currently working with 3 U.S. commercial partners to build the initial gateway. Maxar Technologies, which is designing and building the power and propulsion element, which we will get there in a moment. We'll talk more about that. Northrop Grumman, who is building the Halo, which is a small crew quarters for our astronaut. And SpaceX is constructing a logistic spacecraft to house all the supplies needed to live and work in the gateway and travel to the moon's surface. So given our extensive experience with electric in-space propulsion, NASA Glenn is managing the development of the power and propulsion element for the gateway. NASA and Maxar are leveraging the company's proven spaceflight experience to develop the PPE, power and propulsion element, to not only meet not to meet only gateway needs, but advance the future commercial capabilities as well. This advanced 60 kilowatt class solar electric propulsion spacecraft will do exactly what its name said, provide power to the entire gateway. It will support a critical communications link between Earth, Moon, and visiting vehicles, and will house the technical demonstration and in-orbit science experiment. The power and propulsion element and Halo are scheduled to be joined together at Kennedy Space Center in early 2023, and the integrated spacecraft will launch late in 2023. So let's talk now about power, right? If we go someplace, we also need power to be able to do our experiment, but also live and be sustainable in any of those planets or surfaces. So once we get to the lunar surface, we will work to stay for longer and longer period of time. However, exploring for extended period of time presents a unique set of challenges we need to overcome to be successful. Especially considering the lunar surfaces, we are looking to harvest like water ice, which are abundant in semi-shadow or permanent shadows regions, and our explorers will also have to experience 14 days lunar night cycle. So power system now become a challenge. To help overcome these challenges, NASA Glenn is advancing a broad portfolio of surface power, generation and distribution system, like solar, fission, and radioisotope, that will work together to ensure those missions have the plentiful, reliable power required to be successful. So NASA will use robust, cutting-edge power generators like the fission surface power and the radioisotope power system to ensure this system can operate in direct sunlight, the shadows of the craters, or in the complete darkness of the lunar night. This nuclear power system will enable human exploration of the moon and Mars, For example, a 10 kilowatt system will provide all the surface power needed for a 30 to 45-day human stay on Mars, and multiple units could provide up to 500 days worth of power. The Fission Surface Power Project is a near-term effort aimed at developing efficient, affordable technologies to enable long-duration stays on the Moon and Mars. So NASA, Glenn, and the Department of Energy have already successfully demonstrated a fission reactor system known as CRUSTY, or a kilo-power reactor using Stirling technology, which can provide 1 to 10 kilowatt. This was the first space reactor test completed for fission power systems in over 50 years, and it is marked a turning point in NASA nuclear program. So as you can see, we continue developing different type of power system to be able to have sustainability on the Moon and moving to Mars. So let's talk a little bit about aviation, which is the other area that we work here at NASA Glenn. So we talk about the Moon, we talk about Mars. So let's talk about what is going on right now at NASA Glenn and across the agency for the future of aviation. So we believe we are at the right place and at the right time with the right technology, and we foresee a future of commercial aviation renaissance unlike anything before. The aero world of tomorrow looks very different from today. We envision a world where unmanned aerial system, urban air mobility providers, supersonic commercial airliners, and highly efficient subsonic commercial aircraft all reside within the same ultra-safe airspace. We are currently working on aero technologies that will dramatically improve efficiency while reducing noise, pollution, and travel time, and will provide systems to maintain safety in the crowded skies. Currently, NASA is looking to develop systems and solve problems that will continue to make aircraft safer, especially in regards to engine and aircraft icing, detecting and mitigating technologies. We will innovate on current subsonic transports to ensure they are more electric, efficient, quieter, and safer, and will bring supersonic commercial flight over land to U.S. through flying a cutting-edge supersonic X-plane and conducting ground-based research to reduce the sonic boom. We also will help to move the United States closer to normalizing unmanned aircraft operation and urban air mobility in the nation's airspace. So let's talk about what we do in terms of icing. At NASA Glenn, we like to say we freeze to please. And for nearly 80 years, NASA Glenn has led international research on aircraft and engine icing, contributing to an increase in aircraft safety. In fact, most ice protection technologies in use today were largely developed at Glenn. We have provided information over the years that inform regulatory agencies on the range of icing conditions via wind tunnels and flight testing, engineering tools, and databases, such as the supercool, large droplet, and high ice water content. Capitalizing on our icing research legacy, we are now looking into new technologies being developed and consider what potential issues may arise related to flight into icing. So one of the things is that every time that you make a change in terms of the structure, the design, anything in the geometry, we have to go back and you have to assess what that will do to icing. And we have the tools to predict how that change will impact ability to de-ice or the kind of things that you have to do to mitigate the risk associated with icing. Another thing that we're working on is with ice-phobic materials and developing the tests and the analytical methods to accurately assess the performance of ice-phobic coatings and materials. I remember I mentioned that we also do materials and structure. In regards to the engine icing, ice crystals found at high altitude near convective clouds are known to cause engine power loss or rollback events. This event occurs due to ice crystal entering a propulsion system core, leading to ice buildup and potentially catastrophic situations such as uncommanded rollback, engine stall, surge, and damage due to icing shedding. So these tests are conducted at NASA Glenn Propulsion System Laboratory, which is the only operational test facility in the world capable of simulating engine ice crystal formation and altitude. Our technical plans highlight 3 research areas: flight characterization of the high ice water content we call high-wake environment, classical research in the area of altitude testing for engine components, and fundamental studies of ice particle aerothermodynamics, computational research to simulate engine performance, ice accretion, and engine control. And one of the most exciting thing is what we're doing in electric aircraft. Although the aircraft industry continues to invest in and adopt innovative technologies which are making current aircraft more energy efficient, there's great interest in exploring alternate propulsion system and energy sources. These present an opportunity for NASA and industry to develop cutting-edge technologies that will dramatically reduce fuel usage, noise, and pollution while opening up potential market and business opportunities. Within NASA, we see the electrification of aircraft propulsion system as a key component of future aviation. Ultimately, we believe electric aircraft, along with other technological advances in the space, will allow us to reduce energy usage by more than 60%, reduce emission by more than 90%, and reduce noise pollution by approximately 65%. So we have been studying the transport class electric propulsion for more than a decade in a 4-phase effort. Phase 0 was involved in the conceptual electric aircraft propulsion systems. Phase 1 is the ground testing phase to increase capability, reliability, and performance. And we are currently in phase 2, as we are advancing the technical readiness of subsystems, which include the testing of a megawatt class system at the NASA Electric Aircraft Test Bed at Plum Brook. We'll call it NEAT. So NASA is trying to define the phase 3, which consists of transition to flight, ready system, with transition to flight ready system and flight demonstration. And phase 4 will involve the eventual technology transfer to US companies. So our aero effort centers around the electrification of the propulsion and the development of the high power system and components, with ultimate goal of enabling a paradigm shift from gas turbine to electric aircraft propulsion. So one of the things that we're working on in the near term is a small aircraft like a X-57 Maxwell, all electric X-plane, while exploring different architectures and improving modeling and components. In the midterm, we will look to increase the electrification of common tube and wing aircraft concept while increasing the efficiency of turbine engines through our high power density core research. And in the far term, we will see advanced concept with highly integrated airframe and propulsion system. So we are currently looking at several development concepts, including electrical driving propulsor with power generated from gas turbines or provide from onboard storage, boundary layer injection turbines, and small core high bypass turbines. So we recently awarded 3 contracts to explore options for potential electrifying propulsion flight demonstrators. So one of the things that we do is we work on the design, we do the simulations, but we also have to do the testing. So I mentioned the NEAT, or the NASA Electric Test Bed, which is at Plum Brook. It is really in a repurposed hypersonic tunnel facility, and we have turned that facility in a world-class reconfigurable facility that can accommodate power system for large aircraft, like a Boeing 737 with megawatt of power. The test bed, which just conducted its first megawatt scale test, take advantage of the facility's massive amounts of available power to carry out research and technology development of aircraft electrical powertrains. So one of the things that we look in that facility is not just how the power is conducted, but we also look at the thermal loads and obviously any arcing, any kind of impact that having these changes to megawatt loads will create or will affect the overall system. So besides the thermal and the electrical load, this facility also includes a vacuum chamber, which can currently simulate altitudes up to 40,000 feet to test the high voltage power electronic, the electric motors, and the control. And within the year, NASA planned to increase the altitude capability to over 50,000 feet. So our ultimate goal with the electric aircraft propulsion is to transform the commercial aviation by using new technologies that meet NASA's aircraft level requirements for energy use, life cycle carbon landing and takeoff emissions, and noise. So let's talk now about commercial supersonic. We work in all, the flight regimes. So supersonic, commercial supersonic is the other area we're working on. So overland supersonic flight has been banned in the United States for nearly 50 years. But with the growing demand for faster and more efficient commercial flight, the market for overland supersonic flight is opening, and NASA is working to make it a reality. However, if we can't quiet the sonic boom, then a supersonic commercial airplane is an economic and regulatory non-starter. So at this moment, NASA and Lockheed Martin are developing a pilot low-boom flight demonstrator, X-plane, known as the X-59 Quest, which is designed to fly at supersonic speed and validate the boom reduction technologies NASA has identified. The other thing that we're working on is urban air mobility. So many of you have seen the flying taxis in the big city, right? You see it there in the pictures. So we call those, flying taxis urban air mobility, or UAM. So we see UAM as the key to our future, as it provides a new, efficient method for safely moving people and cargo in the most challenging flight environment, such as a dense city. So currently, NASA is looking to develop systems and solve problems that will allow for extensive collaboration with industry and academia to advance technologies and the system requires to safely bring UAM to market. NASA is committed to leading the UAM community to identify the key challenges ahead and exploring the research, development, and testing required needed to address those challenges. Some of the barriers for urban air mobility operation include the safety certification, the community noise, the cybersecurity protection, and the safe airspace integration. So these issues are closely tied to NASA current research, and we are well positioned to collaborate with the FAA and our industry partners to identify requirements for safe operation and airspace integration. So as you can see, we do a little bit of everything in terms of the technologies for both space and aero. And the better way to describe some of those technologies that serve multiple purposes is shape memory alloys. And to tell you, this is one of my favorite technologies at this point in time. So NASA Glenn has been a leader in advanced materials and research and development. And currently, we are developing the nickel titanium metals that have memory known as shape memory alloys, or SMAs. Our team is working to develop new high transformation temperature SMAs, those that can operate up to 300 degrees C versus 80 degrees C for commercially available alloys. As a result, we have developed a suite of high temperature, high work SMA for application in both aviation and spaceflight. One example of the application, which is being researched, is using the SMA to replace traditional motor and gearbox actuation system to provide significant weight savings, decrease the maintenance requirements, and improve the component reliability. Our team has been using SMA rods to replace the wing fall actuation system of an F-18 Hornet. By using SMA, it removed approximately 300 pounds from the wing by eliminating the standard hydraulic actuators and components. Ultimately, NASA is looking to use SMA to shape aircraft wings in flight, where we will use SMA to move ailerons, flaps, and even winglets. And eventually, this could allow for the removal of an aircraft's entire tail section, because yaw control will be done on the wings instead of the tail. Glenn is also using the SMA in a non-pneumatic rover tire development. Right now, the rovers of Mars are using a rigid tire design that has been very effective, but also have sustainable considerable damage in the rough Martian terrain. By using the SMAs, the researchers at Glenn have developed spring tires that will be able to envelop rocks and other terrain features that are currently damaging to the tires. We run these SMA tires on the torture track out of NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California. And where the currently rigid tires don't typically make it very far, our tires traveled more than 10 kilometers before the test was stopped because no wear or damage was present, providing these SMA tires are up to any kind of challenges. These SMA tires are now being looked at for the future mission for Mars, including a possible sample Mars return mission in the late 2020. So with that, I think I'm going to give you time for questions, and hopefully you know now a little bit more about us. I will have to say that we don't do this alone. We bring with us academia, government, private industry, and as I mentioned before, other partners around the world and other NASA centers. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Marla. Exciting to see how NASA Glenn is getting into all commercial airspace as well as like hardcore space projects as well. So before we proceed further, we're actually running a bit short on time. So usually SEDSTalks is engineered to run 1 hour, but I think for today we might just be a little bit over time. Also, for all you viewers watching today, now is your time to ask Dr. Marla Perez-Davis all your questions. So make sure you leave it in the comment section on whatever social media stream you're watching, and I will be sure to get your question to her. So yeah, we have a question from Emma. So Emma asks, what's one challenge that we still haven't conquered, and how do you think we should try and solve it?
So we still have a number of challenges out there, not knowing exactly what are you referring, if it's space or aeronautics. So let me take a shot at both. In the space side of the house, obviously being able to live in another planet or surface for a longer period of time is a challenge that we're working very hard to conquer. So I have a completely trust that we will find technologies that we need to do that. But it's a challenge, that we all take very gladly because we know those technologies are going to really propel the economy, but I also propel, the benefit for us here in planet Earth. And obviously in aeronautics, airplanes, I think, supersonic, as I talked, we still have barriers to overcome, but we're making progress. And the other area is the electric propulsion. Years from now, we are going to be electric propulsion. It's just that we have a number of challenges out there.
Gotcha. So my last question to you personally would be pertaining to the Artemis program that you talked about. So with the longevity of all these programs like the Mars program and the Artemis program, NASA is looking at returning humans to all these planets. So these efforts will also be, included sending the first woman to all these planets, for example, the lunar surface. So that's sort of a big step towards diversity and inclusion. So how is NASA Glenn enabling an inclusive and diverse workforce to increase the representation of these minorities in the space agency? And let's say particularly the Artemis program.
So the first thing is, look at ourselves, right? We're very diverse in terms of, the composition of the panel this afternoon. So we strive to make sure that, we are very inclusive in terms of colleges and university, everyone that is in STEM, starting with pretty much kindergarten. We have a number of programs and projects for everyone to be part of NASA. Many of you are participants of the space program or the aeronautic program. We have a number of challenges that we put out of the university. So I think the first step is to motivate and inspire students to be attracted to science, technology. And then the next step is, for us to have this type of programs, for you to be part of our pathway interns, for example, to be part of some kind of research at your institutions. So that's the way that we draw the diversity. Is the diversity in terms of the background, but it's also diversity of thoughts, and that with that comes the inclusion. Be part of what we do. Come and join us. Let's work on all these technologies together. I would say that is what we're doing today.
Cool. So let's. We have a lot of comments coming from our viewers watching. So let's take some of those, I guess. So Enrique from YouTube asks, what's your favorite project to have worked on, and were there any surprises that popped up?
So my favorite research project was when I was looking many years ago in what we call the impact of dust into power systems. And the idea is we were simulating the dust storms of Mars in power system, radiators and solar arrays. And to do that, we will get our samples in a wind tunnel that at that point in time was operational at Ames, that we simulate the kind of winds, and we will simulate the dust that we have from, for example, the Viking, provided a lot of information about the dust. So we will create a simulant that it will be like the dust. And I think that was my most exciting, because just putting those samples in there and then extracting the samples and just think about the possibility of those materials are the ones that are being used to go to Mars and hopefully be able to have sustainable power system on Mars. So that was very exciting, and that was several years ago. Well, I'm gonna say many years ago. Be honest, many years ago.
Oh, we have another question from Charlie. He says, "Hi Marla, can you talk more about the main difference between a NASA research center and a flight center?"
So I talk about the 4 research center, and one of our 4 research center is a flight research center. That one is Armstrong. So here is an example. We do a lot of the ground tests. We do our wind tunnel test, but at some point in time we have to fly. So Armstrong is the center that have the platform, which is really the planes, to make sure that we test the technologies on flight. So that's the difference between one of there. We both do research. Is the envelope of where we conduct the research. We do in wind tunnel. They do it in air, in real platform, real time flight.
We also have another question from David. For what missions will the SMA tire be used?
So a couple of things. One, obviously, I talk about for aeronautics will be to replace the actuator. So that's where we'll use SMA. The other one for the tires in terms of the Mars tires, to replace some of the rubbers tires that we have been using. So we're looking at those tires to replace the next generation of rubbers.
Perfect. So we have one more question from Keishla, and Keishla asks about electric aircraft. In what year can it be estimated that it's going to be used for commercial flights? Very, very nice question. That is going to redefine the whole aviation industry coming in the coming days.
So we at NASA, what we develop is the technology. So industry take that technology and they infuse that in terms of their fleet and their plane. So I will say right now we are in the test and development of the technology. It's going to take a number of years. Probably it's going to be like 10 years from now when we will start seeing that technology. Now I have to say that there's electric planes out there, but the limitation is the range and how many individuals you can have in those planes. But the idea is to have, a bigger megawatt kind of electric power for those planes.
Perfect. So I think we don't see any more comments in the comment section. So I think that brings us to the end of today's SEDSTalks. So first of all, again, thank you for joining us, Marla, taking time out of your very busy schedule and taking the time to share the secrets of Glenn and unraveling your journey from Puerto Rico to space with us. So again, for all you viewers watching, SEDSTalks is again going to go live in about 2 weeks. And you will find more information upcoming on our SEDS-USA social media streams. So I wish you all the best of your night, and until then, adios. Cheers.
Thank you so much. Great to be part of the session with you. Take care and go Artemis generation, all right?
We're going. Thank you, Marla.
We're going. Thank you.
All righty, see ya.
Bye-bye.